Last time on a deep dive into Dragon Ball. We're gonna start a truly comprehensive deep dive, and hopefully we'll learn some interesting stuff about language, culture, and maybe even deeper topics along the way. 7 p.m. on Wednesday, February 26th, 1986, as she unloads a 9mm clip into the child's face. Go piss, girl. I'm not crazy. With the success of the first episode of the Dragon Ball anime, it was undeniable that this franchise was becoming the biggest thing in Japan. By 1988, it had grown to such a phenomenon that a US production company took note and secured the license to localize the show for a North American audience. That company was Harmony Gold. Founded in Los Angeles, California in 1983, Harmony Gold had worked on a number of different niche titles, but eventually struck a deal with the Japanese animation studio Tatsunoko Productions to license the audio-visual assets from 3 different animated shows. They would recut and combine them all together, along with a new original script, to create the 1985 series Robotech. Robotech was pretty successful and proved there was a market for Japanese animation in North America. It unfortunately also proved, to Harmony Gold at least, that that market worked best when the original Japanese show was profoundly changed. The company would soon use their connections to secure the rights to Dragon Ball, and in late 1989 and early 1990, a small handful of American kids got to see the first official English language version of the show. Hey y'all, it's Nolan. Until very recently, the Harmony Gold dub of Dragon Ball was practically unknown except to the most die-hard Western fans. So in today's video, as we deep dive into episodes 2 through 7 of the series, we'll also take a look at the Harmony Gold dub, its bizarre quirks, and the way that it has shaped how Dragon Ball is seen in the English-speaking world into the modern day. So let's go ahead and jump into the episodes. Episode 2 of Dragon Ball, titled Wait, No Balls, debuted on March 5th of 1986. As night begins to fall, Bulma and Goku decide to set up camp, with Bulma producing an entire fully functional house from one of her Hoi Poi capsules. The episode centers mostly around bath time and getting ready for bed. Bulma learns that Goku's tail is in fact real, and this is apparently worthy of her freaking out. There's a lot of mildly dirty jokes about body parts as the show really hammers in that Goku knows nothing about girls. We also learn that he was abandoned in the mountains as a baby, was found and raised by his grandpa, and is now 14 years old. The B-plot of the episode is Shu and Mai getting sent out to retrieve a potential Dragon Ball from an ominous canyon. The two plots intersect as Goku ends up in that same canyon at the same time hunting for food. A ravenous wolf pack attacks and Goku ends up unscathed, but Shu and Mai end up very scathed. Morning arrives, and I have to explain this next scene in detail because it becomes weirdly important going forward. Goku wakes up early, and seeing Bulma still asleep, decides to rest his head on her lap as he used to do with his now-deceased grandpa. Something doesn't feel right though, and when he pats at her crotch, he really becomes concerned. Goku removes Bulma's panties and is shocked and horrified at what he doesn't see. Bulma wakes up as Goku is having an existential crisis saying that the balls are gone. She checks, but all of the Dragon Balls are still in the bag, so she assumes he must be half dreaming. A very lost sea turtle comes up to the house. We get my favorite joke of the episode, and Goku offers to carry him back to the ocean. Bulma refuses at first, but eventually decides to tag along, and our heroes begin their trek to the beach to end the episode. So Harmony Gold obviously had to rework this episode, but not as much as you might think. They kept it mostly intact, and really only changed some of the more blunt jokes about things like Bulma having a chest butt,
What if your butt was on your chest?
into a running gag about how Goku thinks girls just don't have tails and that Bulma wishes she did have one. That running gag actually ends with this pretty funny punchline in the Harmony Gold version of this episode.
Are women the same where you come from?
No, most of them have tails.
A punchline that is actually maintained to this day in modern English versions.
Gosh, are women like this where you come from?
No, most have tails.
Episode 3 aired on March 12th and is titled The Turtle Hermit's Cloud. Goku and Bulma are on their way bringing Turtle to the ocean. As they get close, a monstrous tiger man appears and demands they give him the aquatic reptile for him to eat. Goku refuses and easily defeats the ne'er-do-well in one punch. This is the debut of Goku's first signature technique, the Janken, which is a joke based off of Janken Pon, the Japanese version of rock, paper, scissors, and the word ken, which means sword or punch, and is often used in technique and attack names in Japanese martial arts. They finally make it to the beach, and Turtle tells the two kids to wait for a bit so he can repay them for their kindness. The Pilaf gang learn of a confirmed Dragon Ball on a small island owned by someone called the Turtle Hermit, so they rush out to steal it, including Pilaf this time. Turtle returns to our heroes carrying an old man on his back, and this will take us into the Toriyama Name Corner! I'm actually filming this like 2 weeks after the other stuff I filmed. I don't even have all my equipment set up right now. It's been a nightmare recently. Akira Toriyama loved to have fun with names in Dragon Ball, so in this reoccurring segment, we're going to look at all of the new names we encounter and understand the jokes and references behind them. So first we have Kame, which is just the Japanese word for turtle. We're about to meet this old man who will introduce himself as Kame Sennin, or the Turtle Hermit. Though we will learn in a couple episodes that he also goes by the name of Muten Roshi. Muten Roshi is made up of the characters Mu, which means martial arts, Ten, which means heaven, or also in Chinese it can mean sky, and Roshi, which is the Japanese rendering of the Chinese word Lao Shi, which means teacher. So this basically translates to something like Heavenly Martial Arts Master. We'll talk about this a little more later on, but he, like a lot of things in the very beginning of Dragon Ball, is based off of a character from Journey to the West. Check out my first video on episode 1 if you want to learn more about how Journey to the West influenced Dragon Ball. So the batch of episodes in this video is going to introduce us to a lot of new characters. Another one we're going to see soon is Oolong, which is just a type of Chinese tea. Similarly, there's the character of Puar, which is also a type of Chinese tea. But in the village where we're going to meet Oolong, there's a few other characters who have some very interesting names. First, we have this man, who, although his name is never spoken in the episode, his door does have a written name, and that name is Sherman Priest. This village is stylized with an American Western theme, with characters who are dressed like pioneers, cowboys, and Indians. And the name Sherman Priest in Japanese would be pronounced as Shaman Priesto. And that shaman sounds a lot like the word shaman. Similarly, the old lady in the village is named Old Lady Paozu. Paozu is a Japanese rendering of the Chinese dish baozi, which is a type of steamed pork bun. Funny enough, in Japanese, this food isn't called paozu, it's actually just called nikuman. We also hear in this episode the name of 3 little girls who are called Heiji, Hogu, and Ri. I've already mentioned Puar, whose companion is named Yamcha. Yamcha is just a variation of dim sum, which is a type of Cantonese Chinese brunch. Another character we'll encounter soon is Gyumao. The name Gyumao, as well as some aspects of the design, is another feature carried from Journey to the West. The name literally translates to Cow Evil King. We'll also meet Gyumao's daughter, Chi-Chi. Chi-Chi is a relatively uncommon way to say milk in Japanese. And of course, the joke here is milk comes from cows, this is the Cow King, so his daughter is Milk. Lastly, in this batch of episodes, we're going to learn the name of Goku's grandpa. So obviously, Goku's full name is Son Goku, and as we discussed in the last video, that is just the Japanese pronunciation of the characters that make up the Chinese name Sun Wukong, the Monkey King from Journey to the West. Of course, Goku's grandfather's name is Son Gohan, which also has the Son and the Go. However, if you don't know, the sound Go can be put in front of some Japanese words to make it either more polite or to show some type of respect to the concept. One of the most common examples of this is Go being put in front of the word Han, which means rice. This creates Gohan, which can mean cooked rice or just a meal. And so, basing it off of Son Goku, we get Son Gohan, which is a pun off of the word for rice or food. Considering how much Goku loves to eat, this joke really lands. So that's all of the names we've encountered in the Toriyama Name Corner. However, in this video, we're discussing the Harmony Gold dub of Dragon Ball. So now we have to go into the Harmony Gold Name Corner. Harmony Gold made the bizarre choice to change almost all of the names in their dub of Dragon Ball, and a lot of these changes make little to no sense. So first, Goku is named Zero, Budama is named Lina,
I forgot to mention this while filming, but Emperor Pilaf is named Lord Oculi, Mai is named Femina, and Shu is named Chow.
Harmony Gold has the Turtle Hermit introduce himself as the Turtle Hermit, but also immediately call himself Roshi. He treats the word Roshi as if it's just his name rather than a title. And this is one of several things we're going to discuss that Harmony Gold invented for their dub and has been adopted and continued into all other English language versions of Dragon Ball. Oolong, given the way he dresses, is called Mao Mao, or Mao, and the young girl in the village that Oolong wants to kidnap, I know we haven't gotten to that episode yet, don't worry, we're getting there. She doesn't have a name in the Japanese, but Harmony Gold chose to give her the name of Pokawatha. Pokawatha being a weird combination of various Native American names and words that has no meaning in any language. This character has no name in Japanese, but it's essentially treated as canon within the English fandom that this girl has a name and it's Pokawatha. And that's something from the Harmony Gold dub. The character of Yamcha gets the Japanese sounding name Sadaki, and the character of Poir is called Squeaker. We also get told Zero's grandpa's name in the Harmony Gold dub, who is apparently named Tendor. I don't know why. And lastly, I want to talk about not a character, but a very fascinating name choice. Very soon in this episode, we're going to encounter this flying cloud, which in Japanese is called the Kintoun. The cloud is another thing very loosely based off of Journey to the West, and it also has the name Kintoun, which is Japanese for somersault cloud.
Sorry to interrupt, have to step in here again. Kintoun is not Japanese for somersault cloud. Kintoun is just the Japanese reading of the 3 Chinese characters to describe Sun Wukong's cloud. It doesn't have any direct translation into Japanese. It just commonly in English is referred to as the somersault cloud.
And Harmony Gold chose to call this thing the Flying Nimbus, as it's a cloud that flies, and Nimbus is a type of cloud and a cool sounding word. I tried to do the research. As far as I can tell, there is not a single example in the English language of Goku's Kintoun or the Kintoun in Journey to the West ever being called the Flying Nimbus before the Harmony Gold dub. This honestly blew my mind, considering that the Harmony Gold dub to this day is still relatively unknown among most Dragon Ball fans. It is surprising that their naming choice for the Kintoun, something that they came up with on their own and had no reason to go that way, but their naming choice is now the standard. Everything from video games to Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z dubs to Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z translations in manga to even Dragon Ball Z parodies all use the term Flying Nimbus. I just think it's cool that Harmony Gold was able to have at least one surprisingly significant impact on all of the Dragon Ball franchise in the English-speaking world. Hey, if you've been enjoying the video so far, you might be interested in checking out my brand new Patreon. The standard tier is $4 a month and is not only the best way to support the channel and keep this series going and growing, but also comes with cool perks, including, but not limited to, early access to ad-free and uncensored versions of all the videos I make. So go to patreon.com/Jinzou Nolan or click the link in the description below. Now back to the show. Turtle returns to our heroes carrying an old man on his back, and the old man is in fact that turtle hermit we heard about earlier, and he offers Goku a gift for helping out Turtle. The gift ends up being the Kintoun, which can only be ridden by someone with pure thoughts and a pure heart. Roshi proves he is not as pure as he thought, but Goku very much is. As Goku is enjoying his flying cloud, Bulma also asks for a gift, and Roshi agrees, but only if she'll flash him her panties. Now, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about the whole lecherous old man trope in anime, and this is essentially the beginning of that trope. I'm not going to cover that topic here, that'll be something for a way later video, but I do want to point out that this is actually a humorous subversion of expectations. See, Journey to the West features a hermit who trains Sun Wukong, and he is both incredibly wise and incredibly moral, a martial arts master who is also a literal disciple of the Buddha. And that idea became a centuries-long trope in Asian adventure stories. Roshi is a stand-in for that archetype, and his being a gross pervert is a hilarious departure from what we would otherwise expect. Anyway, Bulma flashes him to receive a Dragon Ball, not realizing Goku removed her panties at the end of the last episode. They part ways and return back to the house where Bulma discovers what I just said and has an actually appropriate reaction this time. Roshi returns to his island and causes some inconvenience for the Pilaf gang. The episode ends with Goku and Bulma packed up and back on their journey, and Pilaf, Shu, and Mai sinking to the bottom of the sea. Harmony Gold obviously had to cut around the perverted old man antics of this episode, but I was more surprised to see that they also changed him calling on the immortal Phoenix to it starting out with him calling on Quinton or the Flying Nimbus.
Oi! Wish-joy! Flying Nimbus, come!
Wow, what's he doing?
March 19th's episode 4 is titled Oolong the Kidnapping Monster. Goku and Bulma have been traveling for 3 days. How many motorcycles does she have? And they discover that their 5th Dragon Ball should be in this village that exists. No, seriously, the name Adu Village literally translates as a village that exists, and I think that's hilarious. It turns out that the townsfolk have been terrorized by the giant shape-shifting villain known as Oolong, who, in addition to ransacking the village, has also been kidnapping young girls. It's decided that if Goku and Bulma are able to defeat Oolong and find the girls, then they'll receive the Dragon Ball that happens to be owned by this old woman. The rest of the episode is just a series of great hijinks surrounding Oolong being unwilling to fight, as despite his terrifying forms, he is actually incredibly weak. In fact, his real original form is this diminutive pig man. The design is based off of another primary character from Journey to the West, and his ability to transform only lasts 5 minutes at a time before he has to take a 1-minute rest. Goku does eventually defeat and capture Oolong, and they find the kidnapped girls who have been more than safe in his mansion. So this episode is fun enough, but unfortunately the ending is really bad. They defeat Oolong and then save the girls, and then just randomly the old lady, remembers, oh right, Dragon Ball, and hands it to Bulma, and then it cuts straight to the credits. Harmony Gold decided to call the little dragon radar Bulma has a bleeper, which is an interesting choice. And also they invented the name Pokawatha for the one girl character, which, as we've already discussed, is something still maintained in modern English versions. Episode 5 is titled The Strong and Villainous Yamcha of the Desert, and premiered on March 26th. Goku and Bulma are continuing their journey boating down a river. They've taken Oolong with them in order to keep him out of trouble and potentially take advantage of his shape-shifting ability. This is almost immediately put to the test as the boat runs out of gas and Oolong must transform into an oar to get back to land. However, Bulma's capsules have gone missing, and this combined with the realization that they're headed to the dreaded and dangerous Mount Frypan causes Oolong to run away. The girl genius came up with her own way of keeping him in check though, a candy that will give him the runs whenever she makes this sound. Beep, 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 beep. After the prolonged poop jokes, we find the trio walking through the desert. The bandit Yamcha and his companion Puar discover our heroes, and Oolong, and attempt to rob them, leading to a brief fight between Yamcha and Goku. This fight has some interesting points. First, we learn that Goku's grandfather was named Son Gohan, and that he was a world-class martial arts master. Also, Oolong and Puar went to the same shape-shifting kindergarten. Second, we see what is technically the first usage of a ki attack in Dragon Ball. Although there's no visual marker that would become standard for the rest of the series, this is technically the first time a non-contact energy-based attack is used in the series. So all 3 of you Yamcha fans, don't forget that. He was the first to use ki in Dragon Ball. Bulma, who had been napping in the shade this whole time, wakes up, and when Yamcha lays eyes on her, he freezes, and then he and Puar make a quick retreat. Apparently, the handsome and strong bandit's one weakness is that he is laughably shy around girls. But he vows to come back and steal the capsule that Oolong has, thus ending the episode. There are a lot more substantial changes to this episode in the Harmony Gold dub. Aside from the weird name changes, they also chose to have Sadaki know about the Dragon Balls in advance, as opposed to the other versions of the show where he learns later on. And they make a radical change to the idea of the Ox King and Mount Frypan.
とにかく恐ろしいやつで悪魔の帝王と呼ばれてるぐらいだ。
No one is civilized and no one who's ever entered there has come out alive. I've even heard tales of spirits. Yeah, real spooky stuff. As the story goes, they see all and hear all.
Also, there's this great moment where Sadaki shows up, just says the word so, and then awkwardly stands there for way too long. The Harmony Gold dub is a fascinating look at the philosophy and limitations of localizing anime in the 80s. Their version is filled with what I like to call the speed racer effect, a result of needing to use pre-existing lip flaps to fit dialogue that has a very different prosody and length in English as opposed to the original Japanese.
Let's go over the plan one more time to make sure you have it right. Now, the important thing is to find out where he's keeping the girls. You must go with him to check it out.
I'm in the middle of a race, Trixie. Don't talk to me now. Can't you wait till it's over?
In addition to that, they had to contend with the reality of United States television standards, censorship, and conservative parents. Even in Japan, Dragon Ball was a bit edgy, catering to an audience of 13-year-old boys, but Harmony Gold had to adjust that to an audience closer to probably 9 years old, and having to cut around or majorly alter the crude toilet humor, references to body parts, or anything that would be deemed too demonic for the type of middle-aged wasp mothers who would later go on to claim Pokemon was the devil. Harmony Gold would end up dubbing only the first 5 episodes of Dragon Ball, as well as a couple of the movies, but we're not going to get to those for a long time. They then aired them in what's called a test market, a small selection of television stations throughout different regions to see what kind of response they got. Unfortunately, this test market didn't get the results that they were intending, and so they eventually decided to abandon the project and relinquish the rights to Dragon Ball sometime in late 1990. A few years later, Funimation, another company founded in California but headquartered in Texas, would gain the rights to Dragon Ball from Harmony Gold. They would approach Canadian studios Ocean and BLT for the voice work and would end up producing their own localization of the series. Like with what was done in 1990, Funimation would also debut their version in a test market in 1995, including stations near and around their headquarters. It is then and there that a 6-year-old Jinzou Nolan would first see Dragon Ball. It seems that my immediate infatuation with the show wasn't deemed sustainable enough for Funimation, however, so they also shelved their version of Dragon Ball but moved directly into Dragon Ball Z. DBZ would finally work, and now some 30 years later, the name Funimation is synonymous in the English-speaking world with Dragon Ball specifically and anime generally. All that's a story for a far-off future video, but I do find it interesting that at the exact same time Harmony Gold was resigning themselves to the idea Dragon Ball wouldn't work in America, Japan was airing the series that would ultimately prove them wrong. Episode 6 debuted on April 2nd with the title Midnight Visitors. It's been a full week since Goku left home, and night has fallen in the desert. Turns out the capsule that Oolong was keeping secret contained an entire mobile home, so our trio are at least able to get proper food and rest. This episode is a collection of silly hijinks as Oolong drugs Goku and Bulma in order to do some 80s comedy stuff.
That's
another sex crime. These are all sex crimes.
Yamcha and Puar arrive to rob the group and beat up Goku, and Shu and Mai are also here to steal the Dragon Balls. There's fan service, very silly illustrations, and surprisingly enough, some textbook suspense. The following morning, Yamcha and Puar attack again. Goku wins the fight, causing Yamcha to lose a tooth. They eventually offer the heroes, and Oolong, a car as amends, but it turns out to have a tracker on it, and the desert bandits use that to follow after them. Also, Shu and Mai get blown up. The episode ends with the trio quickly heading to Mount Frypan, chased by the thieves. Despite this episode being a bit more, problematic, I do have to admit that it's one of my favorites of this batch. The hijinks are top tier, and it does result in Oolong, Puar, and Yamcha all finally learning about the Dragon Balls. April 9th's episode, and the last one for this video, is titled The Ox King of Mount Frypan.
ヤムチャの攻撃から辛くも逃れた3人は6つ目のドラゴンボールを目指しフライパン山へと向かった。
The temperature is rising dramatically as the trio approach the mountain. As it happens, the name is more literal than expected. The mountain is actually on fire, and the Ox King is at the base, unable to get to his castle. Meanwhile, Shu and Mai are once again being berated by Emperor Pilaf, ending in a great pun off of a Japanese metaphor for anger. Bulma, Goku, and Oolong arrive at the base of Mount Frypan, with Yamcha and Puar deciding to watch, if for no other reason than to see Goku get his ass beat. Oh, earlier they encountered a young girl being chased by a dinosaur and incidentally knocked her unconscious. This scene has some hilarious moments with the girl, who is named Chi-Chi, screaming in helpless terror while simultaneously deftly defeating the predator. And we also get this line from Yamcha that I really wish more anime fans were able to say. We encounter the dreaded Ox King, and it's clear that even Goku doesn't stand a chance against him, but after he sees Goku's flying Nimbus and Yoibo, they have a conversation where we learn 1. The perverted turtle hermit is actually a great martial arts master, Muten Roshi. 2. Goku's grandpa, Son Gohan, trained under him and was considered his best student. 3. The Ox King Gyumao also trained under Muten Roshi alongside Gohan and was considered his second best student. These pleasant revelations result in Ox King asking Goku to fly to Muten Roshi's island and receive the Basho fan, which is the only thing capable of putting out the fires of Mount Frypan. Goku agrees, and then the giant adds that he had sent his daughter Chi-Chi already, and Goku should find her and take her with him. Yamcha and Puar realize that they have just recently assaulted the Ox King's daughter, so return and help her out just in time to ditch before Goku arrives. We get my favorite joke of this episode, and it ends with Goku and Chi-Chi arriving at Roshi's house. Watching this batch of episodes was really nostalgic. Now that we're at episode 7, the show is starting to properly feel like Dragon Ball. There are some weaker points though. Episode 2 sets up jokes that will pay off later in the future, but it still lingers on them a bit too long for me and really doesn't do much to progress the story. I've already mentioned the bizarre way that episode 4 ends, and the first half of episode 5 is really meandering and just like an 11-minute poop joke that wasn't personally my cup of tea. And of course there's all the aspects of episode 6 that are worth critiquing. To be completely honest, I have to say that of this batch, the weakest episodes are 2 and 5, as they both suffer with a similar thing that we saw in episode 1, being that the show has a consistent story that reaches a nice end point, and then kinda has to start a new story 3/4 of the way in to catch up with the running time. But I honestly think it's just a clumsy consequence of adapting from manga to anime over the first few episodes. By episodes 6 and 7, the problem's totally gone. The pacing picks up and the episodes feel far more consistent. In fact, 6 and 7 are definitely my favorite episodes of this batch. The addition of Oolong to the party gives a new and far more deserving target for Bulma's ire, which allows the friendship for Bulma and Goku to really begin to blossom in episode 7. Yamcha and Puar are fun characters, and it's nice to finally see someone who can hold his own against the otherwise near-invincible Goku. I love how the Turtle Hermit is a subversion of the martial arts master, instead being a frail and perverted old man, only for 2 episodes later, that subversion to get flipped on its head when we learn he actually is a martial arts master. There are a lot of weirdly interconnected relationships in these first few episodes. Everyone seems to know or know about everyone else. Every time our heroes meet someone, they either have a Dragon Ball or are connected to a Dragon Ball in some way, and I can totally imagine someone critiquing this as being a bit too contrived. But I personally love how this quickly fleshes out the world and pushes the journey forward. Bulma and Goku currently have 5 out of 7 Dragon Balls, and the 6th one is waiting in the Ox King's castle. We, the audience, also know that the 7th one is held by Pilaf, but our heroes technically don't even know that he exists yet. There's kind of a suspense to it, as although these first few Dragon Balls have seemed to be easy for the heroes to catch, we know that there's going to be some obstacles and difficulties, especially for that last ball. Well, that takes us up to episode 7 of Dragon Ball. Next video will break down episodes 8 through 13, which will not only conclude the Emperor Pilaf saga, but is also going to introduce us to one of the most famous things in all of anime. Links to Patreon and other cool things in the description, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you see the next episode of this deep dive into Dragon Ball. Thanks for watching. The characters of Yamcha and Puar, who we'll meet soon, are given the name Sadaki. The characters of Yamcha and Puar, who we'll meet soon, are given interesting names. The character of Yamcha is given the Japanese-sounding name Sadaki, and the character of Puar, I need to look it up. I forgot what the f*** did they call Puar in the Harmony Gold version of the show.